This morning's message will not be a Bible study as much as it will be biblical commentary about our present reality with a sense of urgency. I want to begin with the imagery of what you see in your right rear view mirror. What does it say on the mirror? Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. And I use that as a reference to history. History not heeded is often history repeated.
With just 2 weeks until Election Day, pretty hard to believe, Democrats in the media are taking a page from their old playbook, ramping up the anti-Trump rhetoric and comparing him to Hitler and other dictators. Check out these recent headlines. Trump is speaking like Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. Trump's rhetoric is fascist and violent. And Trump is straight up talking like a Nazi. Those are real headlines from real left-wing publications, totally irresponsible. And here's what Democrats and the liberal media are saying.
I know it's a loaded word, but when you say you're going to be dictator on day one, I mean, look up the definition of fascism, the characteristics of a dictator, an authoritarian. I mean, General Milley said it himself, but Trump, again, reinforced it himself.
Vice President Harris, meanwhile, campaigning on the Trump is a threat to democracy message.
Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again have the privilege of standing behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again. Never again.
Before evil leaders historically rig an election, they need to rig people's minds. As Joseph Goebbels infamously said, he's the minister of propaganda in Nazi Germany. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. That was true then. That is true now. That is true always.
And for them to invoke yet again this very stale playbook chapter, I agree, of the equating him to the Nazis, when the irony to me, the disheartening, disgusting irony to me is, as Pastor Matthew Maher points out, this playbook is one exactly from that era indeed, but one of the Democrats whose narratives control the media, whose narratives have been controlling the youth in a way that is absolutely frightening. And you are right that they are relying on this totally passé narrative. They are ignoring the American people's needs. They are ignoring the policies that would lift them up. And they are hoping that the Hail Mary of equating this human, this actually dignified, wonderful gentleman with animal and so much more, that will work, when all it will do is stoke the flames further for political violence. It is reprehensible.
See, you study history, you see the same trends. Tyrants rise through the vein of lies every time. Now, did you know that Hitler lost the presidential election in July of 1932? 6 months later, January of 1933, do you know not a single vote was needed for Hitler to be appointed as chancellor? In fact, it occurred in a backroom deal in January of that year, where he would emerge onto the political landscape, and I'll say it again, without a single vote needed. You are probably unaware of what happened within the month. In February of 1933, the Reichstag building was set on fire. What is the Reichstag building? It is where the parliament, or the legislative branch of Germany's government, would meet. It is equivalent to our United States Capitol building, where our legislative branch meets. Many believe Hitler and his regime not only started the fire, but soon after stoked the flames of fear and took advantage of the chaos. The Reichstag fire of 1933 was used by the Nazis to accuse their political opponents of insurrection. The propaganda machine swung into motion, and of course, that led Hitler to pass the Reichstag fire decree, otherwise known as the Decree for the Protection of People and State. That sounds awfully admirable, right? Until it led to the suspension of civil liberties such as the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, and the right to assemble. It quickly led to arrests without trial. It allowed for the indefinite detention of his political opponents, and it led to an increased police state, or equivalent to our Department of Justice being weaponized. Is any of this sounding familiar? See, Hitler understood if he could label his political opponents as insurrectionists, that he could present himself as a savior of democracy. All of these plays were at play. Can you see how it happened? Can you see how it's happening? That's the question I have. To see or not see? That is the question.